There is a certain type of person who does not chase attention. They don't feel an urgency to be seen. They don't compete for recognition. They don't feel compelled to broadcast their thoughts, experiences, or identity. In a world structured around visibility, this behavior stands out. Modern culture rewards presence, expression, and constant engagement. Attention has become a form of social proof, something to be accumulated, measured, and displayed. So when someone steps away from this dynamic, it often raises suspicion. They may be seen as detached, unambitious, or uninterested in connection. But psychology suggests something else entirely. For many people, not chasing attention is not a lack of motivation. It is a different form of regulation, a different relationship with validation, a different way of managing energy, identity, and meaning. Attention has always held power. From an evolutionary perspective, being noticed once meant survival. Visibility increased protection within groups. Recognition increased access to resources and social bonds. The human nervous system still responds to attention as if it were essential. Praise activates reward pathways. Approval reduces uncertainty. Recognition stabilizes social rank. These responses are automatic, but modern environments have amplified them. Today, attention is no longer limited to small groups. It is quantified, distributed, and engineered at scale. Likes, views, shares, and comments turn attention into a measurable signal. For many people, this signal becomes emotionally regulating. When internal stability is weak, external feedback compensates. Psychology refers to this pattern as external self-regulation, relying on social response to maintain emotional balance. But not everyone depends on attention this way. People who do not chase attention tend to rely more on internal regulation. Their emotional baseline is less influenced by approval or disapproval. Praise does not dramatically elevate them. Criticism does not destabilize them. This does not mean they are emotionally flat or indifferent. It means their sense of self is internally anchored. Their identity does not require constant reinforcement. Because of this, attention becomes optional. They can accept it without becoming dependent on it. They can lose it without experiencing threat. Psychologically, this reflects a more stable self-concept. When identity is coherent internally, external validation loses urgency. Chasing attention is not free. It requires monitoring how one is perceived, anticipating reactions, adjusting behavior to maintain approval. Each of these processes consumes cognitive and emotional resources. For people sensitive to this cost, attention does not feel rewarding. It feels draining. Psychology describes this as cognitive economy, the conservation of mental energy. People who don't chase attention often recognize, consciously or unconsciously, that visibility demands ongoing maintenance. Once attention is gained, it must be managed. Expectations increase. Performance becomes continuous. Withdrawal becomes noticeable. For some, this cost outweighs the reward. People who don't seek attention often occupy the role of observer. They watch before acting. They listen before speaking. They assess environments before engaging. This observational stance is frequently misunderstood. Silence is mistaken for passivity. Restraint is mistaken for disinterest. But observation is not absence. It is a form of engagement that occurs internally. These individuals process information before externalizing it. They prioritize understanding over expression. Where others perform identity, they refine it privately. A reduced desire for attention often correlates with low emotional reactivity. These individuals are less influenced by social reward loops. Praise does not significantly alter their mood. Disapproval does not dominate their self-perception. This emotional steadiness can appear unusual in highly stimulating environments. But psychologically, it reflects self-coherence, alignment between internal values and external behavior. When values are clear, attention loses leverage. Approval becomes pleasant, not necessary. Criticism becomes information, not a threat. People who don't chase attention are often described as withdrawn, but withdrawal implies avoidance. What is more often observed is selectivity. They engage deeply, but narrowly. They choose fewer relationships, fewer platforms, fewer expressions. Their social energy is concentrated rather than dispersed. Instead of broad visibility, they pursue depth. This creates fewer interactions, but more meaningful ones. In many social environments, attention is tied to identity performance. Visibility becomes proof of relevance. Expression becomes evidence of existence. For people who don't chase attention, identity does not need to be performed. They experience themselves without an audience. This allows for a more private sense of self. Their thoughts do not need witnesses. Their motivations do not require announcement. Psychologically, this reduces identity fragmentation, the strain of maintaining multiple versions of oneself for different audiences. Attention-seeking often prioritizes immediacy, quick feedback, rapid response, short-term validation. People who avoid attention tend to think on longer timelines. They invest energy in processes that are not immediately visible. Learning, skill development, internal integration. Because their motivation is internally generated, it does not depend on instant feedback. This makes them less susceptible to social pressure and trend-driven behavior. Because modern culture equates visibility with engagement, those who avoid attention are often misjudged. They may be seen as lacking ambition, or lacking confidence, or lacking social interest. But confidence does not always express itself outwardly. For many, it exists as emotional independence, the ability to remain stable without external reinforcement. This form of confidence is quiet and therefore easy to overlook. Ironically, people who don't chase attention often attract it. This happens because non-reactivity creates contrast. In environments saturated with signaling, restraint becomes noticeable. Humans are sensitive to emotional independence. When someone is not seeking approval, it suggests internal certainty. And certainty is compelling. This attention is not earned through performance, but through presence. For these individuals, attention is not avoided out of fear, it is declined out of preference. They are capable of visibility but not dependent on it. They do not resist recognition, they simply do not pursue it. This allows them to engage with the world on their own terms. Attention becomes something they can choose, not something they must secure. People who don't chase attention often derive meaning internally. Their sense of purpose is not shaped by external response. They value coherence over applause, alignment over approval. This makes them less vulnerable to social volatility. Their self-worth does not fluctuate with trends, metrics, or collective opinion. In many cases, avoiding attention is not instinctive. It is learned. Some individuals become aware of how attention manipulates behavior. They notice how visibility alters motivation, how performance replaces presence, how validation replaces satisfaction. With awareness, attention becomes optional, and opting out becomes a form of self-regulation. Silence is often interpreted as emptiness. But psychologically, silence can signal fullness. A mind occupied internally has less need to externalize constantly. A person grounded internally does not need to announce stability. Silence becomes a sign of containment rather than absence. The psychology of people who don't chase attention is not about superiority. It is about regulation. It is about conserving energy in environments designed to extract it. It is about maintaining internal coherence in cultures that reward constant expression. Choosing not to chase attention is not indifference. It is often awareness. And in a world built on noise, awareness remains one of the rarest psychological traits. Not everyone is meant to be visible all the time. Some people are oriented inward, not because they lack confidence, but because they are already grounded. They don't chase attention because they don't need constant confirmation of who they are. Their sense of self is not constructed through observation. It is maintained through alignment. In environments that reward noise, performance, and reaction, this kind of person can seem invisible. But invisibility is not the same as absence. Often it is restraint. It is the decision to conserve energy rather than spend it on validation. To remain coherent rather than perform. To exist fully even without an audience. And in a world increasingly shaped by attention, choosing not to chase it is not withdrawal, it is clarity.